All right, everybody. Good evening. Let me make sure I got everything ready. Yep. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well tonight. I had not planned on doing this stream. I did um, talk about how I didn't want to talk about polls. I mean, polls are kind of useless right now. 9 months out from an election, there's nothing to really talk about. And I'm only talking about a poll right now because, we're in the dumbest timeline, aren't we? With Donald Trump. And, I'm going to sue with this poll and stuff like this. So if you don't know, I didn't really know until like about an hour ago. Tell you the truth, that's how disengaged I am with American politics at the moment. I've been working on my history channel way more than my political channel. But anyways, Donald Trump has come out, and let me go ahead um, and show you what we have here. Has come out and said that he's going to sue the New York Times for a Siena poll that came out. Okay, now we're going to go through this poll and see if there's uh, anything with it. If there's anything that is just like out of the ordinary when it comes to that. I don't know if there is or not. And so we're going to go ahead and delve into this. Now, the reason why I'm doing this as a live stream is honestly, I've been making videos lately and it's just for nothing. Okay, so I'm not going to be making any main videos in the foreseeable future unless there's some reason to make a video. I will be doing election night live results, but that's the only thing that I'm going to be doing for the foreseeable future. So this is Dan Pfeiffer's message box, and here he has why the New York Times polls devastating news for Trump and great news for Dem. So we're going to go through it. I have not looked at the poll. I do not know what the crosstabs are. I don't know what it says whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and delve into that. But you can see here the delusional Donald Trump. And by the way, um just so people know, uh currently right now, and I do not know how to change it, the only people who can comment right now in the comments are people who have been a subscriber of the channel for over 20 minutes. So a lot of you have been, but we get these fucking idiots that come in from the Trump people that just say MAGA, 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 and their brains the size of a pea, and they can't contribute anything better than that. Anyway, so let's see what their dear leader has said here. Okay. The Siena Times poll, which is always tremendously negative to me, who gives a shit? It's a poll, especially just before the election of 2024, where I won in a landslide. You didn't win in a landslide, you dumb piece of shit. Will be added to my lawsuit against the failing New York Times. Okay. Our lawyers have demanded that they keep all records and how they computed these fake results, not just the fact that it was heavily skewed towards Democrats. Now, I don't know if you all remember when this was a thing. Back in 2012, there was this guy who had something called the skewed polls, or unskewed polls or whatever, saying that all the polls were skewed towards Barack Obama, and that that Mitt Romney was going to win by a larger margin than we expected. So let's see. I'm gonna see if I can actually find what the electoral map was like that they were gonna say what it was. I don't know if I can find it, but it was like ridiculously lopsided. But anyways, they've always been into this. Republicans have always been into, oh, the numbers aren't fair. Unless they win an election, then somehow numbers are fair. Okay, stop counting the votes, count the votes, whatever. But I do want to talk about both sides of this. So obviously, Donald Trump is just delusional when it comes to polls. Okay. But I also think that the Democrats are overstating the severity of things. Let's go ahead. We're going to delve into the poll. Now, one thing I want to do before we get into the poll, I want to look at Donald Trump's approval rating. Okay. So the current spread, according to the Real Clear Politics average, I don't like using Real Clear Politics, but it's like the only thing that kind of what we can use to show some sort of average is at 12.1%. Now, if we go through all of what Donald Trump has had in the past here, we can see that where Donald Trump is now is not any worse than where he was previously. So let's take, what is today, the 22nd of January? Okay, if we look at the 16th, 25th of January, okay, of his first term. Okay, so we're talking about the exact same point in his first term. His approval rating was 40.1%, with disapproval 55.9%. Okay, he's much closer now. The gap is much smaller now than it was in the past. And Democrats, and this is why I made the post about Kyle Kulinski, the Romano Report, and other things. What I said was that these people are like, oh, these polls are absolutely devastating to Donald Trump. They're no different than polls that we've seen in the past. And honestly, Joe Biden's numbers a lot of times were worse than this. So this isn't an outlier. This isn't anything that we haven't seen before. This is in line with what we've seen with Donald Trump. I notice above me it says the latest YouGov poll. That's just it's not the latest YouGov poll. I just forgot to change the mat on this because I just wanted to go live. But we are going to talk about this poll. But anyway, this is one thing I want to talk about, that these polls that we see are no different than what we saw in 2018 at this time. And we should be aware of that. Okay. How he was performing at this time, 2018, was worse than how he's performing right now. So let's quit acting like this is the end of the world. Okay. And considering that in 2018, one can say that he was significantly more tame than he is now, not killing people on the streets, arresting people, telling ICE agents to break into houses without warrants and stuff like that, grabbing leaders of other nations and threatening to invade other nations, trying to collapse the entire American economy. Because as I said it once, I'll say it again, the world is going to move on without the United States. And Mark Carney and all them have already done it. The world is going to move on without the United States. Anyway, the point is we've been here before. This isn't new. Okay? So let's quit with the hyperbole of this is the worst thing that's ever happened to Donald Trump ever. This is why I really don't like the Midas touch. I like Kyle Kulinski. And what he says, but to treat these polls like there's some anomaly, that's wrong. Okay, so let's go into what the poll says. Now, if you watched my videos before, over the last weeks, we kind of know what the baselines are for what we see. We see, the Democrats heavily against them. We see some Republicans, maybe 10, 13% disapprove of what he has. You usually see the independents more towards the Democratic side. White males like him, white females kind of in the middle. Other races, bigger gap amongst Hispanics. As we get younger, more people dislike Donald Trump. I mean, these are what we're seeing. Urban against Donald Trump, suburban mostly against Donald Trump, 55-45, something like that. Rural, usually 60, 65 to 35 or 40 approval. Okay. I mean, we know the routine. We know the routine. So let's look at his approval rating. And we'll look at some of the other ones. Okay. Do they have just approval and disapproval? No, it looks like they got them done this way. So we see right now he's at a 40% approval rating. Oh, okay, there we go. Net approval, net disapproval. Okay, so we see he's at 40%. Okay, seems right. Men, 48-48. This one seems a little bit more even than I expect, though we have seen some polls where males have, we've seen a lot of polls where males have been even, but once you do white males, it goes ahead and separates. So this 48-48 might not necessarily be out of the range. 64-34, that's about what we're seeing with female voters. In this distribution, 69% of respondents 18 to 29 say they disapprove of Trump. Then that goes to 59%, then 48%, then 55%. Now, this is exactly what we see almost in every single poll, right? We see that the younger voters, the Zoomers, the Gen Z, they're at 69. More the millennials, they're a little bit more approving of Trump, but still against that. Then we usually see Gen X. We have 45 to 64. We see Gen X and late baby boomers all of a sudden, above water, +1. This is what we're seeing in the polls. And then 55 to 42, we see there a little bit of a gap with senior voters. And we're seeing this now. We are starting to see senior voters turn away. Now, one of the problems that we have with senior voters, if you're a Democrat, is a lot of senior voters are disagreeing with or disapproving of Donald Trump. They disagree with the Republicans. They agree with the Democrats on issues, but yet they're voting for the Republicans when we look at a lot of the generic ballots. Now let's see in this one how they break down. On this one, they're actually 2% for the Democrats. That's good. So let's look at race. 51% disapprove, the 47% approve. That usually would be underwater. So this is something that's maybe a little bit different than what we usually see. Black respondents, 81% disapprove. That's what we expect. Hispanics, 58% disapprove. So that's in line with what we expect. White, and then non-white. Okay. Education, hold on. So that's that. Education, if they have a bachelor's degree, well, let's just go to race and education. Okay, white with college, 65% disapproval. Okay, white with no college, 57% approval. Okay, to 41% disapproval. This is right within what we should expect. Okay, there's nothing off on this. Okay, non-white college, 66% disapproval. That seems right. Non-white no college, 70% disapproval. So these racial bounds are essentially where Donald Trump, where we expect his numbers. Okay, and then if we look at the regions, that's something different. Now, one thing I am kind of wondering, if we do go here, is what the last poll was. Has New York Times Siena done a poll recently besides that one? So I want to see if they've done one that we can kind of compare it to. Well, it would have been outdated, but let's go ahead and look at an Emerson poll. Let's go ahead and look at a YouGov. We don't want to look at Quantus Insights. That's just a Republican polling farm. Let's go ahead and see full results with that. We're going to go ahead and go over to YouGov first. Let's just compare these. Let's see the difference between what we see with YouGov and the difference with what we see with the New York Times poll. Okay, so let's see approval rating. Okay, that's Trump approval Iran. Usually they have his approval rating either at the very beginning or at the very end. Okay, let me just see if I can find this. And for anyone watching this video after I do a live stream and are sitting there going, oh, put your sentences together and all that, it's a live stream, okay? Let's see. Because I see Trump approval for Iran. Trump approval rating. Here we go. Okay. So this is YouGov, the latest YouGov poll. So we see 37 to 57, which is more of a gap than what we see in the New York Times poll. Okay, which is 40 to 56. Okay, almost kind of identical. Now, if we look at male respondents in this, we have 53% disapproval to 43% approval amongst males, right? So that's a 10% gap. What we have here is 48-48. So the New York Times poll is actually more favorable when it comes to male respondents. So that means that female respondents are probably more likely to be closer. 32% to 61%. Okay, so we're talking about as much of a gap that we see right here with women voters. So actually, the New York Times poll in regards to male voters is better for Donald Trump than the YouGov poll. Okay, let's look at race. 52% of whites disapprove, 43% approve, so the same as the male. Okay, we can see here 51% of whites, 47% of males. Okay, so white voters are actually somewhat close here, right? So we don't see anything really different. Black voters, 81% disapproval. In the YouGov poll, 82% disapproval. Hispanics disapproval, 55%. In this New York Times poll, 58%. So these are basically exactly the same numbers that we saw in the YouGov poll. Okay, let's look at education. Let's see if they have education. They do not have education there. Okay, we can do party ID, 2024 vote. Okay, so party ID, and this is why I said at the beginning of the video, right, that we have Democrats strongly against him, 95% to 4. And what I say, between 10 and 15%, I said, or 13 to 15% of Republicans saying they disapprove. Well, there it is right there, 13%. So these are what we're seeing in all polls. So if we go look at party ID, as far as Republicans in the latest YouGov poll, 17% disapprove. So this poll from the New York Times actually benefits Trump more. Okay. Independents, this seems right, 62 to 34. Disapproval, according to the New York Times, 61 to 29. Disapproval. So these numbers are almost like right, right on the money. Okay. And if we look at how they voted as far as Harris and Trump, so 97% to 2 disapprove of Harris supporters. That's no surprise. 96% to 3. Okay, that's right on. And then let's look at this one, 86% to 12. Okay. Or no, excuse me. That's the wrong one. So Harris, 93 to 5, then 81 to 16. Okay, so actually the YouGov poll smacks down Trump a lot more than what we have in the New York Times poll, right? And then let's go ahead and look at Trump's approval rating in the Emerson poll. Why? Oh, full crosstabs. There we go. Okay, good. It's the first one. So here we go. What is your party affiliation? See, like, even this one is weird. Okay, like the Emerson one is kind of out there because if you look at the Emerson one right here, they ask, what your party registration or affiliation is. 16% of Democrats are neutral or don't know. We don't see that in other polls. When we see Democrats, it's very much disapproval. So we're seeing a big difference here. Okay, so this poll is already off. what was the overall count of approve, disapprove? Let's go back to the top line results. 43% approve, 51% disapprove. Okay. Well, that number amongst the Democrats is a really bad number, because I know 16% of Democrats are not neutral when it comes to Trump. Okay. And I know 30% of Republicans are not neutral when it comes to Trump. Oh, wait, you know what? There's something wrong with their percentages. You know what it is? I know what it is. Okay, wait. Let me go this way. I know what it is. There we go. There we go. Okay, I got it now. I had the cross tabs wrong. So here we go. 87.7% of Democrats disapprove, 86% of Republicans disapprove. So this one, again, is more favorable to Donald Trump, because usually we're seeing 94, 95, 96% of Democrats disapprove. And then with independents, we usually see that at 60 or a little bit higher, right? So we do see that. If we look at... let's go ahead and look at just gender and race. Okay. So if we look at race, 49% or 50% of whites approve, 48% disapprove. Okay, that's in line with what we're seeing. Black, 72% disapprove, or 73% disapprove, 17% approve. Okay, though that's a lot of unopinionated. Hispanic, here we go. Hispanic Latino, 45% disapprove, 43% approve. That's a lot closer. And then if we look at the age, we can see the age doesn't really have much of a variance. And what's really odd is the 40 to 49 group are the ones that have the lowest, second lowest approval rating after the 30 to 39, which seems off. But this is another poll that gives Donald Trump, like, shows that he's doing well. Okay, not doing well. Let's put it this way. He's not doing well, but he's not suffering. You know, when you go out there and tell your people to start rounding up people and arresting them and shooting them and saying that, whatever it is they're saying about Renee Good right now, you should not be at 40%. You should not be at 42%. You should not be at 37%. Okay, because let's go. I'm going to go. Because this goes back again to people who, it seems like, their knowledge of presidential election or presidential history started in 2016. Okay. Let's look at what Gallup has done as far as approval ratings. Okay. Harry Truman is down to 22% approval rating in February of 1952. Eisenhower is actually a pretty popular president. 49%, 48%. So 48% was the worst that he did. He was a pretty popular president. John F. Kennedy, very popular president. The lowest he had was 56. Now, once you get into Nixon, and you'll start seeing the numbers come down. LBJ, 35%. Okay, Trump's higher on average than what LBJ was in August of 1968. After he dropped out, after the 10 offensive, after a number of things, he was at 35. Trump did better. Watergate, 24%. When the shit was really hitting the fan with Watergate, 24%. Okay, Nixon resigned. Okay, Gerald Ford's approval rating, we have a bunch here, 38, 39. Okay, he was at 71, but then all of a sudden dropped down after he pardoned Nixon, and it just got worse after that. So he was in the low 30s, or mid 30s, excuse me. Jimmy Carter's approval rating went all the way down to 29. Okay, 29%. Ronald Reagan's approval rating, the great Ronald Reagan, down to 35%. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. And look at that. Look at when that is. Ronald Reagan, January of 1983, his approval rating was at 35%. Okay. Year and a half later, he sweeps every state but one, Minnesota, and of course the District of Columbia. Okay. That number is lower than what Donald Trump has now. George H.W. Bush, 29% during the Great Recession. There we go. Okay. Bill Clinton, 39% early on, and then we had 42%. So Bill Clinton was at 39 in the early part of his administration. George H.W. Bush, 25%. Okay. Barack Obama, let's see his lows. He was in the 40s. I don't see it going down to 39, so 40. Donald Trump, for all intents and purposes, or is at this point right now. Okay, this shows Donald Trump's second term, 36 as of the latest Gallup poll. Joe Biden was down to 37, was down to 36, 37, 38. Okay, wait, maybe they got up first term. Here we go. Okay, and Donald Trump has always been down there, right? Okay, so let's see. Well, he didn't run for re-election, of course. So my point is with this, we're going to end the live stream in a few minutes here. I just wanted to get on a live stream and do this. My point is that all these presidents have had abysmal approval ratings. And the approval rating we're seeing for Trump right now is not unlike what we have seen in the past. As you've seen with almost every president, they've almost all been where Donald Trump is right now. As a matter of fact, many of them, like both of the Bushes, like Harry Truman, like LBJ, like Richard Nixon, they went significantly lower. Okay. So Trump is actually performing better than a number of other presidents. As a matter of fact, kind of interested here, has Trump, according to Gallup, ever been in the 20s? So we see 36, 36, 35. Okay, October 23, 2017, in his first term, Trump was at 35%. Right now he's at 36%. Okay, so he hasn't been in the 20s. And both Bushes have, Truman has, I think LBJ and Nixon were, right? So and the reason why I get mad at this, the reason why I made my post about the Romano reports and the Kyle Kalinskis and all those people, so they're saying the numbers are horrible. No, they're like almost what every other president has had. Okay. Now, does that mean they're electable or whatever? Yeah, we don't know. Okay. As we said before in the last midterm, a presidential approval rating does not determine how an election is going to turn out. Okay. You got tons of people say, I fucking hate Biden, but I'm going to vote for the Democrats over the Republicans. Like if they would have called me and asked me, do you approve or disapprove of Joe Biden as president during his term, I would have been in that disapproval number, but I still would have voted for the Democrats. Okay, so that dynamic will still be there. Okay, but at the end of the day, let's quit acting like, okay, the whole idea of this was to talk about Trump doing the suing and seeing if this poll was any different than other polls. No, I think the YouGov poll looks worse for Trump, but he's not going after YouGov. He's not going after The Economist, right? Which if you're going to go by the polling, go to them. Okay. The Emerson poll made him look better. So the New York Times poll is nowhere near an outlier when it comes to all the polls. He essentially has to sue all of the polling firms because the New York Times is not an outlier. As a matter of fact, I would even argue that the New York Times is pretty much a medium. Okay. It's right in the center of where we are seeing these polls, but it just comes back to the point of Quit acting like Trump is going to sink because of approval ratings. And I see it every day on YouTube. And I'll tell you, it has come to the point where over the last, I've mentioned month, I've thought about quitting doing political YouTube because it just seems like it has to be, blue MAGA, cheer on the fucking blue team and just be oblivious to what the fucking facts say out there. And the facts say that Donald Trump's approval rating right now is no different than most of the presidents that we have seen throughout the polling history of approval ratings by Gallup over all these years, nearly 80 years or so. It's not different. Yes, there are some outliers. John F. Kennedy is an outlier. But Bill Clinton had a lower approval rating at this time. Okay, Trump's lowest approval rating was also the lowest approval rating of Bill Clinton, 35%, according to Gallup. So we need to quit doing that because here's the problem that I have with it. Your eyes off the ball then, right? If you are looking and thinking, oh, Donald Trump, everybody hates him. Everyone hates any president. And ever since Richard Nixon and LBJ with the Vietnam War recalibrated everything that politicians are looked more negatively than positively. Okay, prior to LBJ, a lot of people saw government as good and that there were bad apples. Now it's flipped. Now it's like it's all bad apples, but every now and then you get an AOC. Every now and then you get a Zohran Mamdani, at least, at the city level, right? So people don't look at politics in a positive light anymore. That's why all of these are down there. And the problem I have is that Trump is just, if we go back to the Real Clear Politics, and we'll take out the polls done by the Republican polling farms like Qantas and Rasmussen and stuff, RMG. They're all Morning Consult 46. Okay, YouGov 41, CBS 41, Marist 39. Marist is still a very big outlier, right? Reuters 41, Wall Street Journal 45. And people might be saying Wall Street Journal, Republican newspaper, Murdoch newspaper. That doesn't affect, that has nothing to do with their polling firm. The other YouGov economists, 44%. Another Morning Consult, 45. Yahoo News, I think, do they do that through Ipsos? I'm not sure. 43, Quinnipiac, 40, CBS, 4, and on and on and on and on and on. Okay. This Trump's views right now, and I'm sorry if you don't want to hear it. I'm sorry if you don't want to hear it. He's where every other president has been at some time in this. Okay. Every single time. All right. So that's all I wanted to mention because I wanted to talk about why this is, why this poll is not an outlier. He has no reason to sue except that he's just a whiny little bitch and he just wants to complain about everything that doesn't go his way. But I am, and really it is coming to the point where I have wondered if I want to quit YouTube because it's just like you have to, you can't be truthful on this platform. You have to squeeze every little bit of partisan bullshit out there. Do I want the Democrats to win? Absolutely. Do I make any secret about that? No, not at all. Do I like channels like Kyle Kulinski? Yes, I like Kyle Kulinski's channel. I really, really do. I like Kyle Kulinski. I've been, when Crystal Ball was on the Hill, I was on the show with them. I did election coverage with them twice, talking about Florida. I like all these people in these progressive circles that we like. I like them. The Romano report, I don't know. He's under the impression that Trump can be impeached and removed. Good luck with that one. But it's getting to the point where I can't do that. And it's hard to build a following if you aren't a cheerleader. I'm not a cheerleader. That's the reason I don't work in politics anymore. I specifically quit politics. I didn't quit politics because of Trump. I didn't quit politics for any partisan reason. I quit politics because when you gave them good or bad news, I guess I should say, nobody accepted it. Everyone was like, well, no, we're doing better because John talked to Bill and his neighbor's going to vote for me. Okay. Um, and this is why it's like I can lie and build a following, or I can tell the truth and not build a following. And at that point, it's just a waste of my time. Okay. It's just a waste of my time. So this is, because I got other work to do. I got other things to do. Now I'm going to say, and other people have made this point, and I will be, I will be honest and truthful, which is that a lot of people have mentioned that the elections that we've had, the special elections, have been going in the way of the Democrats. That is absolutely true. This is why it's important to separate polling of favorability ratings from vote choice. They are not the same thing. And I've been saying this for years, whacking people upside the head, saying that doesn't matter. Somebody can hate somebody. As a matter of fact, it's usually more the default that a person hates someone before they like them, right? In politics nowadays, you actually have to earn the trust of people. But, a lot of people out there are going to say, I hate Donald Trump, but I'm not voting for a Democrat. My Republican in my congressional district, or my Republican in my Senate, in the Senate race in my state, that Republican's different, right? That's what the Susan Collins Republicans are going to say. That's what the Dan Sullivan Republicans are going to say. Okay. Do I do any modeling myself? I've been doing modeling the whole entire time. I did it all. Most accurate models of the election during the last election, except for Wisconsin and Michigan. I don't know what other models said. My models were wrong on Wisconsin and Michigan. I will admit that. But I was one. And let me go ahead and tell you. Let me go ahead and tell you the truth. I haven't told you this. I'll say it. Thank you very much, Ash K2318. In 2028, the whole secret Republicans are married. Our women will vote. Democratic narrative will return. Don't fall for the psyops again. It's liberal cope. We don't. 2028 still a way away. But let me tell you about 2024. Okay, this story I haven't told. And I'm not going to mention names, because I promised certain people that I wasn't going to mention names. But of the people who I like or dislike, if you watch this channel for a while, you can probably guess who some of these people are. Okay. I made my video about how we're in trouble in Pennsylvania. Okay. I made my video about how we were in trouble in Pennsylvania. Had most dislikes. It's still got like 90% likes. Okay. But everyone came up with the Republicans are going to vote for the Democrats, yada, 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 yada. Okay. So anyway, I did my Pennsylvania video. Then I started contacting other people. Didn't do videos on them, but I started contacting other people, and I think I might have mentioned it in my videos. I said, we're in trouble in all states but Wisconsin and Michigan. We're in trouble in Pennsylvania. Obviously, I made that video. Carly1129, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. I said we're in trouble in Pennsylvania. North Carolina was pretty much gone early. Georgia was going early. The rural counties were just turning out at an unbelievable rate. Nevada. Now, when it came to Nevada, it's hard to model there because you need to have enough data points. And my model is done by county. So there are very few counties there, so it's hard to get enough data points. Kind of the same thing with Arizona. But I was looking at John Ralston's website, which, by the way, he has today it might even be coming out, the biography of Harry Reid. I really want to read that. I might do a book review on it. Anyway, Nevada looked bad, and I was looking at what he was saying about Nevada. I'm like, my model says it looks bad, and he's saying it looks bad. We're on the same wavelength. Arizona never picked up. Maricopa County was never picking up. So I was like, we're in trouble in all states but 2. And I was conveying that to people. I was saying to certain, like, I would tell certain people, then that would get to certain people, and so on. Anyway, I then got the back channel from certain people to threaten me to not say this anymore. Because at that time, my videos were getting watched. And this is the reason why I'm going to do live. I'm going to probably do more live streams than I am regular videos because, again, live streams perform a little bit better than regular videos. I got more in Super Chat in this video as far as income than I'm getting right now from a regular video. So that's why I'm just, for now, doing live streams. But once we get closer to a general election, I'll be doing more streams because there'll be more that we can look at that point on. And once we get into the primaries as well. But doing live modeling is no, all my analysis is all my models, just to answer a question before I continue, all my models are based on early vote and vote by mail. All my models. Okay. I don't do all of that is so I don't do anything based on any polling or anything whatsoever. A poll is not a vote cast. Early voting, that's a vote in the mailbox, or that's a vote in the ballot box, right? So that was the thing. I was looking at the numbers. I presented my models here, and I kept on saying that it's really, really close. But I was getting the words from some people through an intermediary, like 2 or 3 of them, tell me that I should not say what I'm saying because it is hurting the cause. Like I was told by people, and it really came to a head. And I'm going to show you my Substack. Now, I'm not going to be publishing on Substack anymore. So please do not, don't subscribe to it. I'm not going to do it now. But let me go ahead and show you. Let's see. It was this article right here that I wrote. Why this interview scares me. It was on October 28th, and I was talking about what Jen O'Malley Dillon was saying was frightening the shit out of me. That's what this whole article is about. Because they were coming up with all these copes. Republicans voting for Harris, low propensity voters, younger voters, election day voters, super voters, like all these things, all these things were screaming to me that the Democrats weren't going to win. Okay, so I'm going to put in here. So yes, O'Malley Dillon's interview put a bit of a panic in me. Granted, the numbers early in Michigan and Wisconsin look good. But as I said earlier, the Democratic performance has been lackluster so far. Now, we still had, week and a half left. I go, this last week of early in-person voting is usually substantially stronger than all previous weeks of early voting combined. That was not the case. Like if we look at Georgia in particular, those last few days of early voting were not gangbusters. They were lower. This week is where the Democrats will make up a lot of ground. I expected that to happen, but it did not happen. Also, if this week is mega for Democrats, that will probably stop the election day Democrats talk, basically calling out bullshit on that whole theory. It's a close race. It's always been. We have 8 days left. This was when and again, this was October 28th here. This is when I actually started with the alarm bells. That's when I started saying, so, yeah, that's not it. So, okay, Tropical Ding, thank you. We should do some modeling live. Even your Python isn't pretty. I'm not sure what that last part means. I've been doing modeling for 30 years. As far as my methodology is concerned, I got that master's degree behind me is from McGill University. Master's degree in McGill University in political science, focus on voting behavior. I've even, let's see, written an academic article co-authored with my supervisor about election forecasting, econometric approaches to forecasting. Okay. So I'm not a let's talk elections and just look at poll numbers and do stuff. I've done this stuff. I've written about this stuff. I've been academically published on this stuff. Okay. Now I know that Python is a programming language, but that doesn't create a methodology based on political science. That's been one of my biggest problems when it comes to people in math programming and all that. They don't have the political know-how to make a model. And this is one thing I've always complained about with both sides. I go, like, to the people who are purely in politics, they don't listen to the numbers and to the computers, the stats and all that. And that's a problem with them. But a lot of people on the computer side don't know the political side. And I'm one of the only ones I know that I've kind of worked on both. So again, I don't do any modeling based on anything but early votes and vote by mail, because again, this goes back to the knowledge of political science. Those are votes that have been cast. Polling numbers or any other data before that cannot tell you anything about turnout. Okay. But anyway, back to the story. So I wrote that article. I got a number of people complaining about that article. Because what I did in that article, remember, as I broke down that article, maybe I can put it in the chat right now. Okay, I'll just go ahead and put it in there right now. It was a little bit too on the nose for a lot of people, because I saw them spinning something. Basically, it was one of those situations where the Democrats were trying to spin something that never happened before. And they were trying to argue that it was happening. Modeling turnout's the only way you can model an election, because you're trying to figure out there are other, it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for trying to determine the winner? You got different types of models, right? You got different types of approaches. You got different types of methodology. Do you do a retrospective or prospective vote model? Do you do it based off of polling? Do you do it based off of geographical locations? There have been tons of models ever since we've gone back to FAIR back in 1971 and have looked at models throughout. So like FAIR was like one of the first ones back in the early 70s. And then you've gotten models throughout there. If you get this, I did a whole lit review on the models up to that time. But I don't do forecasting models. I do nowcasting models. That's why it is, that's why on election day, I can only give a prediction or a belief of who I think is going to win uh, based on if I'm able to get election day data. Most of the states I can't do it. Florida I can, and I was the only one, by the way, who said that Andrew Gillum was going to lose to Ron DeSantis. Everyone else said Gillum was going to win. Mine was, it's going to be very close, but it's going to be DeSantis. DeSantis won. Again, elections are based off of votes cast, so therefore you have to go based off the votes cast. I mean, so I got the calls. I was told, don't make that content. I don't give a shit, right? A lot of you know that. I don't give a flying rat's ass. But there was a point where, and I'll admit I got brought in, okay, where certain people were talking about bringing me into certain circles to talk about this. And this is where the people who you know, who I've really gone after, this is where that comes in. And you know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know the two people, the specific two people I'm talking about. Those two people, someone wanted to introduce me to them. Okay. Said, hey, we should bring in Dave to help us with this because he's looking at this stuff. He doesn't get this stuff wrong, and he knows what he's talking about. And I stand by my record. Okay. I stand by my record. And these two were very much like, no, we don't want to bring him into our circle. And this person tried really hard to bring me in. I give that person a ton of credit for that. And then, you know, I would have people say that these two particular people were going around Democratic circles telling everybody that I was wrong. Like when I wrote that article about Jen O'Malley Dillon, I was wrong. When I wrote when I did the video about Pennsylvania, I was wrong. And one of my quote unquote prediction videos that I made like a few days before the election, I had one where Donald Trump, I had him winning. Okay. They were going around saying I was wrong. Like they were actually going to people within Democratic Party circles saying, don't listen to Dave. He's wrong. And I got this feedback because I know some people were torn. So I was talking to some people and they listened to me. So they're like, holy shit, we're in trouble. I go, yes, we're in trouble. Okay. But the other people are trying to say, no, we're not in trouble. Okay. And all the stories that one of them came up with, one of these two people that I'm talking to, were like nonsensical. Were, oh, remember the whole cannibalization aspect. Oh, Schwartz, thank you very much. Schwartz, I guess. Thank you very much. Any experience in phone banking? I've done it in college. Not fun, but necessary for polling data. Less and less now. Yeah, and I'll get into that. So that's interesting you mentioned that. I'll explain that in a few minutes. Less and less now, actually. But that's a good question. That's a good thing to bring up, and I'll explain why it's not a thing as much. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So they were talking about like the cannibalization of voters, that like, oh, all the super voter Republicans are coming out in early voting, and therefore they're getting a lot in early votes, and they won't have as much turnout on election day. Now, we were looking at, and I even mentioned this in a few of my videos I did during the election, we were seeing that when they ask people by party, when are you going to vote that Republicans were still more likely to vote on election day? So I'm sitting here going, well, if they're dominating early voting and the polling, all the polling is saying that they're going to turn out on election day, that's a perfect storm for the Republicans. And so this is why I've been kind of hesitant to really continue this channel. Now, I do my election history channel. I love doing that, and I love doing it because it's a time where we actually had sane politics, but I don't have to cheerlead or anything like that. So we, so yeah, so it makes me wonder, is it worth it or not? Because I'm going to just tell you this. After 30 years, and it's like, I don't want to sound like Trump. I don't want to sound all full of myself. I want to be humble. But when you sit there and say, we have problems in Georgia, and it all started, it wasn't Pennsylvania. The first one I sent a message to people, I was like, North Carolina, we're fucked. And then all of a sudden, I just got all the messages coming in on WhatsApp. What's happening? I go, there's just no way we can catch up. We're fucked. Okay. We're not getting the momentum. We're screwed. And then Pennsylvania fell, and then Georgia fell. It's like boom, boom, boom. Those 3 states right away, I was like, it's not going to happen. Okay. Which then led to, as soon as I said Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia weren't going to happen, I believe, and you guys can correct me if we're wrong, if I'm wrong. I believe that if Harris had won Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that would have been the only combination that was not enough for her to win. That she would still have to win Pennsylvania, either Pennsylvania, North Carolina, or Georgia. I might be wrong there, but I think that's what it was. And the fact that I was saying these 3 states to these people are screwed, it was just like, we don't want to hear that. You got to say that one of them's good. I'm like, I can't. And so, that influenced what I said. And I mentioned in my article, at the end of the election, I was thinking, one of these people is a consultant for a very huge data analytics group. And that person was talking about Democrats are going to turn out to vote on election day. Republicans are cannibalizing their voters, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm looking at my data. I'm like, I don't see this shit. But this person has a lot more data. This person has a lot more information. This person has a whole entire staff, okay, that they're able to discern all the data and try to figure out what's going on. I'm like, they must know way more than I do. All I'm looking at is the early vote and vote by mail numbers from each state, putting them into my into my model and seeing what's coming up. That's what I'm saying. That's all I did. So I was questioning myself, going, am I wrong? Because I feel like we're going to lose all but Michigan and Wisconsin. And we ended up losing those too. I'm like, I feel, so when people talk about voter fraud in Nevada, I don't believe it. Anomalies doesn't mean fraud. Anomalies happen. Okay. People change. Like I said, before 2020, Democrats mostly voted in person early and not by mail. Vote by mail is mostly Republican. After COVID, that switches. Things happen. Things change. So I started questioning myself, saying, am I wrong? Am I wrong with this? Is this not the way that I think it's going? And yeah, that's kind of when I lost faith in myself. And I let off the gas, questioning myself, pressure from people within, not the Harris campaign, mostly Democratic consultants that were working with the Harris campaign. So I never had anything with the DNC. Up there is a super chat. I'll get to the super chat in a second. John, thank you very much. It wasn't the DNC giving me any bullshit. It wasn't the Harris campaign. It was always, they were always consultants working with them. It was never the party or anything. I don't even think the party or the campaign knew what I was saying. But I think some of the consultants knew what I was saying. I know some of the consultants knew what I was saying because consultants didn't know who I was. And they would contact people that I knew and they would say, what do you think about this Dave Trotter guy? And these people would say, I know who he is. He knows his shit. Okay. So that's why it's hard for me to do this. It's the reason why I left politics in the first place. I left politics and purely went into English teaching because I didn't want to deal with the business of politics. The whole politics thing about, I mean, except sometimes trying to explain issues or ideas to people, is like trying to open up a pinata made of cement. And I know that you guys know what that is, right? You debate, I'm sure you debate with people about issues, and no matter how you phrase it, you just can't get it through them, right? So it never was the politics that got me. It was always it was always just the business of politics. And I hate to say it, if I were to have worked in Republican circles, I probably would be retired living in McLean, Virginia right now. For some reason, even though Republicans don't like to deal, now maybe in the Trump era it's different, but back in the day when I worked in politics, Democrats never wanted to know the truth. They said, oh, John, my friend John talked to Bill and he's voting for me. So therefore you're wrong. Oh, who do you know? Not what do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you blow? Right? That's what it is in Democratic politics. In Republican politics, it was like, give us the data, show us what's happening. I don't know about now, but politics has gotten to a new level of just making everyone feel happy. Okay, John, let me get to your super chat. Thank you very much. Most white women will vote Republican. Most whites, suburbanites will vote Republican. I don't know if most white, yeah. Many Democrats thought that these would vote for Harris. Right, exactly. The Republican for Harris thing. Now, are we starting to see data where we're starting to see Republicans vote Democratic? Yes, I've talked time and time again about the Florida 1st Congressional District special election and the Florida 3rd State House special election, where we did see that. We are starting to see that this cycle, but we never saw anything like that in the other cycle. Okay, Metal Gamer, thank you very much. The base needs to overthrow the big consultants. But I agree. But the problem I have is I don't know if the base, and it depends on what we see. Here's the problem with the Democratic Party. There are two bases, right? And I call them, and maybe there's a third base. Okay, there are the Bernie Bros, of which, up here, right here, right? Of which I'm one. Then you got the Hillary hags, right? So you got the Hillary side, you got the Bernie side. They're all fighting for control of the party, which I don't know why. The party is a useless entity right now. And with that being the case, it's like, okay, I don't know if just simply changing consultants would matter. I think Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign with Jeff Weaver as the campaign manager was one of the best run campaigns in the history of presidential campaigns. He went from nothing and almost was able to get the nomination. The people who ran Bernie's campaign in 2020 were horrible. Bad. Okay. So Jeff Weaver really focused on economic progressivism. But most importantly, the one thing that they did, and I hate to say this, it's unfortunate, it's stupid, but it's true. Semantics matter, right? Jeff Weaver and Bernie Sanders were just talking about the corruption, that the system is rigged, and that corporations control things. You know the whole Bernie thing, right? What was one of the first things in 20, so that was his 2016 campaign. What was the first thing that Bernie Sanders campaigned in 2020? When he hired a bunch of people who, I hate to say it, really have no real campaign experience. Okay. I don't think any Democrats have any real campaign experience nowadays. They haven't been in the trenches. They either been on a campaign that is a losing campaign, or they've worked on a campaign where the Democrat won 75% of the votes. One of the first things that they did is, we're going to have a town hall to explain what democratic socialism is. That's when Bernie lost. I want to say it was like in November or December, before the New Hampshire primary and Iowa caucus, like the year before. That's stupid. That's just dumb. Now, I'm not going to deny this. I am very much of the socialist leaning. So call me whatever you want. Okay. I think the workers should take over the means of production. Okay. I truly believe that. I mean, and Republicans are dumb. They don't realize that socialism is an economic system, whereas communism is a political system, right? Now, I can get into all of the tenets of socialism, communism, all that. That's not what this channel is about, but I know a lot about that subject. But that was just a dumb mistake. So I don't know if you brought in those Bernie Sanders people from 2020, I think they would do worse than a lot of the establishment people, because they're just tone deaf. You go with the electorate that you have, not the electorate you want. Okay. So yeah, there is a difference. You might hear me drinking the water. It is what it is. We're humans. So yeah, do I think that the consultants need to be thrown out? I mean, it's not even like a throwing out type of thing. It's more of just first of all, Democrats need to be honest with themselves as to what an issue is and what an issue isn't. I will say the good thing, if we can take a good thing out of this, the good thing about what's happening right now with the Democrats, as far as what's happening in Minnesota, what's happening with, I keep on wanting to say Hugo Chavez, right? What's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in Greenland. So we're not talking about identity politics, right? I mean, it took, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, Dave, it was the Republicans talking about identity politics, not the Democrats. Yes, but the Republicans can make an absurd claim, but the voters believe that the Democrats will do it. So that to me says the Democrats have a problem. Like if I went up and said, yeah, John over there, you better watch him because he could kill you. Okay. Now that person can say, bullshit, that's not the case. But if that person believes that John could kill him, he probably has some information about John that makes him think that what I'm saying is true. And Democrats don't understand this chain thinking. Democrats always think about what's here, not what's 6-7 steps ahead. This is the reason why I've always said the rest of the world, and I've been saying this, okay, there are two things I've been saying since I looked at my old videos, and I said it, I think in February or March of last year. I said two things. One, I've been saying I don't think we're going to have free and fair elections. And two, that the world is going to move on without us. And I was watching, I don't know what her name is. Her last name is Miller, Legia Miller, or Elijah. I forget what her name is. I really like her. She's really, really good. But she did a video yesterday saying that she doesn't believe, or she's less and less likely to believe that we're going to have free and fair elections. I'm like, finally, we're getting through to people. Okay, how do we mitigate this? I mean, that's the question. And my worry is We've already allowed the fox into the hen house. And I do not know how that changes. I really do not know. Um, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just want to talk about the polls today because obviously Trump said, and I said I don't want to talk about polls. I'm only talking about this one because Trump says he's going to sue the New York Times, though we just looked at the Emerson poll and the YouGov poll and saw that the New York Times one, the Siena New York Times one, it's basically the median poll. It's right in the middle compared to where all the other polls are. So it isn't the New York, it's not the poll that's making him sue. Otherwise, he'd be suing Emerson College and YouGov and whoever, right? So yeah, so that's the thing. I wanted to talk about that and how it's not an outlier, but I really wanted to bring up this point of I'm just tired of liberals and progressives. And I've mentioned this before. I'm tired of liberals and progressives just constantly acting like things are better than they are. Okay, as far as Trump's polling. Now, I've always complained about the Midas touch. And I'm going to say the same quote as I always do. Oh, Trump just did the worst thing ever and it's going to destroy him. And like farted in front of the Japanese prime minister or something like that, right? Like something so insignificant. And see, this is another point. And this is the Romano report. I don't know if anyone watches the Romano report. I do. I don't agree with him. I think he's a little bit too rose tinted glasses for me, but he sat there and said, he like wondering if he wanted to keep on going on with YouTube because you have to come up with these sensationalist thumbnails and these sensationalist titles. Okay. And it's like, if you don't be sensationalized like the Midas touch or Kyle Kulinski or all those, you're going to crash. And honestly, to sensationalize is essentially to lie. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Kulinski, and I want to make this clear. I like his channel a lot. I watch his channel a lot. I do like it. It's just let's just go back. Let's go back to those Gallup polls, right? So all these polls here showing that where Donald Trump is right now, almost every other president has been at that same point and had that low of an approval rating, and as we have seen now. Okay. And this is the point. We can't be lying to ourselves if we want to win. So of course, the question is, does that even matter? John, thank you for another super chat. Democrats need to call out, remember that their Nazi comments against Muslim Somalis and Syrian refugees. It's not identity politics. Right. So, I mean, identity politics. Here's the thing with what's happening with ICE. There's a difference between, well, I don't even think it's identity politics anymore with that. That's just thuggery and violence, right? Because we're talking about who's the one person that has been killed, right? Younger, middle-aged white woman. Okay? They didn't know that she was, well, maybe the one cop did if he knew that was her wife and all that. I'm not sure. So yeah. So I mean, we're in a new era of living, and maybe call this. I know Dave Pakman has talked about this, and I noticed there's a lot less talk about him ever since he had his incident where he was being paid by essentially the DNC to shill for the DNC. I don't know if people still talk about that. But I notice he's a little bit more in the DNC circles now than he is in progressive circles. He talked about leaving the country because he is born in Argentina and leaving the country. 37 is not middle age. I said lower middle age, like the low end. I would say middle age is between 35 and 60. Okay. So that's what I'd say. I'm been in those groups. But he talked about leaving. He talked about leaving the United States. Is it safe and all that? I'm going to tell you right here in this envelope, right here. This is my out ticket. My Slovak citizenship is right here. And I have my out. And I am going to be leaving the United States. Just so you guys know, if anyone thinks I am going to be leaving the United States, not necessarily because of all the crap happening here, though that's now accelerating it. It's just I've never felt that I've belonged here. Okay. I've not been one of those people who like to walk into a Walmart, say hi to the greeter and try to be in a conversation with them for 3 hours. No, I want to go in, get my damn eggs and then leave. It's just how I am. Here's the thing about 37 being middle-aged. Okay. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I feel so old. I'm 37 years old and I feel so old. And I'm like, shut the hell up, right? You can be my age right now. So I look at it this way. The moment that somebody starts saying that they feel or are too old or something like that, that's when middle age hits. That's my criteria. So yeah. No. So should we give Trump a refresher on the first month? He doesn't care. Okay, let me go. I know this has kind of gone from a show about the poll as to, to me griping as a lot of these are. It's like the Epstein files. I'm tired of hearing about the Epstein files. And I'm tired of the Democrats with their head so far up their ass saying, oh, Trump is threatening to invade Greenland because of the Epstein files. No, Trump's threatening to invade Greenland because he's a psychotic fascist piece of shit. And all the people he surrounds himself with are psychotic fascist pieces of shit. It has nothing to... Jeffrey Epstein didn't even exist and none of this exists, he would still be wanting to attack Greenland. He would still be going after Venezuela. He would still be promoting the breaking in of houses of people without an arrest warrant, because that's who these people fundamentally are. It has fuck all to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And it's like, Jesus H. Christ on a popsicle stick, Democrats, if you stop talking about Epstein and actually focus on the real shit that's impacting us right now, open your fucking eyes, jackasses. Okay? This, and honestly, this is one of the reasons, what I was talking about earlier about trying to break open a cement pinata, the Jeffrey Epstein thing is it. No, and I don't think it's grifters and crazy. I think it's these people are white supremacist. I mean, we know Trump's a white supremacist, right? I mean, he's proven that when he and his father were landlords redlining like hell, okay, denying people who are black apartments. So we know he's a racist. We know Stephen Miller. Okay, you think Stephen Miller gives a shit about the Epstein files? Do you think Stephen Miller 10 years ago when he was pushing this shit even knew that the Epstein, well, maybe not 10 years ago, but 15 years ago, you think he even knew that Jeffrey Epstein even existed? No, these people are psychotic fascists that want to destroy the United States and make it a pure white Christian Anglo-Saxon country. That's what they want. And I've even gone to the point where I'm saying, hey, you know what? My family's been here for 350 years. I'm Irish, Scots Irish, and Anglo-Saxon. Should I be able to tell Nick Fuentes to get the fuck out of my country because he's given me the privilege to use my white ass that's been here forever argument, right? Yeah, I mean, it's dumb, but you know, that's what they're saying. But it's like, I don't think Trump has dementia. I think he's just fucked up. He's always been fucked up. I mean, he's always been a crazy bastard. Okay? So, you know, the Democrats saying and progressives saying, oh, these poll numbers are bad and he's doing all this to deflect from Epstein. You're fucking blind. You people are, you're blind. No, he's doing this. See, now, is he a Christian? No. And is this about, and this is another thing, is it about Christianity? No. So I always hear another thing progressives and liberals say, which is, and remember, I'm on their side as far as issues. I just think they're really bad when it comes to looking at the other side, because I'll tell you personally, me, I've been on that other side before. Half of my family's from Mississippi. I've been on that other side. I've been on that other side. I know how they look at things. Okay? I haven't always been a progressive. Economic progressive, yes. But on social issues, I've been very right-wing on a lot of things. So I know what they think. I've changed my mind over the years. Okay? Christian identity is what it's about. It's not about living a Christian life. Okay? It's an us versus them thing. That's all it is. Okay? And the them is usually people of color. Even though it's extremely highly likely that those people of color are also going to be Christians and probably more likely to lead a Christian life than the people who are sitting there saying, lead a Christian life, right? So, it's, and I'm sorry, you know, people are talking about Trump's, so somebody mentioned here, Trump being senile. Joe Biden was way worse than Trump. Repeat Medicare, okay? Joe Biden, okay? Trump's just, he's just nuts, okay? And this makes me mad, as you can see tonight, because, you know, there just comes a point where I think progressives, liberals, all that are going to do whatever they can to grab defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay. And that's it. They're believing that there's a different reality out there that's not the reality. And that in and of itself is going to make them not prepare for whatever the reality is. Okay. This is why I am kind of happy that now we are starting to get Democrats and progressives starting to say, I don't think that we're going to have free and fair elections. Okay. So I'm like, good. So mitigate for that. Now you're finally recognizing it. Mitigate for that. Now, Matt Beat, so friend of the channel, or at least friend of my history channel, all that, Matt Beat, he did a reaction to my video about, I think the elections are going to be stolen, right? Or not stolen. I think they're going to be stolen. Not canceled, but stolen. And he had a good video, and I agree with what he said in his video. When he was looking at my video, reacting to my video, what he said in his video. So he reacted to mine live on Twitch. And then I'm just giving one thing. So only one thing that I would say not to do that Matt mentioned in his video. I think he released a short on it today or the day before. Is it only take a picture of your ballot if you are mailing in a ballot or you're outside a polling location. Because if you go into a polling location, you pull out your phone and you take a picture, they will, if you pull it out and take a picture, they can say that you have what's called a recording device and basically say you're committing voter fraud or you're spying on the election or whatever. So always be careful with a phone camera inside a polling location. They can do that. My personal belief, get a ballot mailed to you, fill it out at home, go to the election officials, give it to them, hand it to them. Daniel, thank you very much for the super chat. Folks trumpeting the low Trump approval rating these days are stupid. He's doing better than he was during his first term. That's what I mentioned, right? But just to play devil's advocate, is it possible that no approval ratings matter more these days because of partisanship? I think we're in the same partisan world that we were. Okay. To tell you the truth, I truly believe that we've been in this partisan world that Democrats all this way, Republicans all this way, since 1996. I don't think it's a new phenomenon. It's 1996. And here's my belief. Bob Dole, Mitt Romney, John McCain. Those were all candidates, and to a lesser extent, George Bush, were all candidates that Republicans had to hold their nose to vote for. Okay. Then Trump came. He's like, the Republicans are like, this is what we want. Right? What did the Republicans always say? Oh, we like it because he says it how it is. It just means that he's just a racist that will say the N-word probably and not even care about it. Ronald Reagan was very much like this. Oh, if you go over to my history channel, Election History, the video that I just released 2 days ago is about the Ford versus Reagan primary in 1976. And there are so many parallels. Not as bad, but there are so many parallels between Reagan and Trump. Okay. Reagan in 76, I don't know if it's as bad as 80 because I got to research 80. 76, he lied his ass off. And he always sided with like the racist. He would always say, oh, this should be a local matter. But there was no time where he ever sided against the racists. Right. So there was a situation in Charleston, West Virginia about books coming into school. There was this one lady, Annie Moore, something like her last name was Moore. And she basically said the state's trying to bring in books that are hurting white people. I mean, she just pure out said the racist stuff. And like Reagan sided with her, but said, oh, it's local control. So, watch that video because, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be working 95% or 90% on that channel and 10% on this channel. I want to make that channel be the one that I work on the most. But yeah, over on that channel, it's just amazing parallels. So Reagan was doing the stuff that Republicans want. I think a lot of Republicans, okay, I don't know about you. Every Republican that I know personally, and this is just me, maybe not you. Every Republican that I know personally is essentially a racist, or not essentially, are racists. Every person that I know that's a Republican is a racist. And Trump just opened them up a lot and allowed them to do that. I've never met a Republican who is economically conservative. Okay, I've never heard many Republicans that are for lower taxes. Now, you might have, right? I'm just saying this is my situation. Every Republican that I know, we're talking about half of my family's from Mississippi, the other half is from Illinois. Okay, so we're talking about suburban Illinois. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the people, my family from suburban Illinois, are significantly more racist than my family from Mississippi. significantly more racist. And those are the people that end up going down to Florida and living in Ron DeSantis's world, right? I don't think Trump's like Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater was an ideologue. Ronald Reagan was an actor. Donald Trump is an actor. Okay. No, I wouldn't say Reagan or Trump is Reagan without the charisma. Overall, maybe, but he has the charisma with his people. Okay. Because his red hat wearing motherfuckers are the most rabid of supporters. Right. And if you're an American, if anything opened your eyes over the last few weeks, it should have been once Renee Good was shot, they said she's a domestic terrorist. That should have been your big red flag right there. Okay, this hate against Somalis reminds me of the segregated South that we learned about in high school, history repeating itself. I mean, yeah, I mean, because they're talking about, and I don't even know the statistics. Minneapolis is known for having a strong Somali community, obviously. You know, Elaine Omar, Somali American. But now all of a sudden they're going after Somalis in Maine. I mean, I didn't know Maine was a big Somali refugee home. Okay, I mean, that's news to me. A scholar. So was Albert Speer. No, Albert Speer was an architect, right? So yeah. So you're right. I mean, I think that's the case. I mean, they are making the scapegoats. There's always the scapegoat, right? And this is why I think I did repost my video, and and you have to decide what you want to do. Because this is my opinion, why I will be talking about elections, and I had thought about doing something. There's the question of, is this even worth fighting for? Now, I'm going to admit, I've never owned anything. Okay, like, unless it's a book like this that literally has the American flag on it, I've never bought an American flag. I've never bought a USA hat. I've never had anything with the United States flag on it or anything like that. Okay, I think the only thing that I might have had that said USA on it was a U.S. men's national team, soccer national team shirt from like 2000. Okay, I think that's the only thing. I've never thought America was worth saving. And people can call me anti-American, whatever. Probably am. I'm not going to lie. Okay. To me, I've always said, I will always think the United States is a bad country as long as it's the richest country in the world and cannot give its people health care. And speaking of the Davos speech that Trump gave, that ridiculous speech, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but you notice how Donald Trump kind of gave it away. And this is something I'm surprised a lot of progressives are not talking about. He's talking about how France, Germany, and others should raise their prescription prices. Medical prescription prices. You know, he talked about that, which shows you one thing: he ain't gonna do shit. He ain't gonna do jack shit for prescription drugs, right? The Chicago suburbs have gotten really MAGA. Some have, and the ones that have don't surprise me. I would say more, because you got like the near suburbs and then you got like the far suburbs. So you got like the near suburbs of Schaumburg, Hoffman Estates. Then you go around Lake Forest. You go that way like the ones close around Chicago, those seem to be more Democratic. But as you get beyond that, is you get into more of Lake County. Now, not Waukegan, but you get into Antioch, you get into McHenry, you get into Island Lake, Grays Lake, Libertyville. You get into more of Kane County. Well, maybe not even Kane. It is starting to become more Republican. Maybe DuPage County is the only one that's maybe trending more Democratic, because you got to remember DuPage County was won pretty well by it was a pretty strong state for Kamala Harris, or state. Geez, I'm too tired right now. It was a pretty strong county for Kamala Harris. You got to realize back in the 1970s and 80s, DuPage County was like the most reliable Republican county in the United States. It was like every Republican stereotype was DuPage County. Not anymore. So yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and end this day because I've kind of gone off. Don't have many views tonight, but this was kind of a last minute thing. As I mentioned, I probably won't be doing any actual videos for a while. I'm working totally on my history channel. Because I am going to do stuff for the election and all that, but I am going to make an admission, which is that once I get to Slovakia, I really want to decouple myself from American politics. I really want it to be in my rearview window. Now, I don't mind talking about the elections from afar, but as with right now, see, this is the reason why I can't do something like Kyle Kulinski or whatever. To me, and give Kyle and other people credit, but it's like, if you want to be in the commentary sphere of politics, you have to live, breathe, eat, shit, piss politics, like 24/7. Yes, I am doing the special election in Texas. Don't worry about that. It's like, you just got to live politics. I'm 52 years old. Okay. And I'm at the point that, no, when I'm done with my work, I don't want to think about politics. I don't want to be immersed into politics. It's like, once I'm done with my job for the day, I want to relax and do other shit. Right. And for some people, living, breathing, eating, shitting, pissing politics is what they love to do. It's like the love of their life. That was me 5 years ago. That was me maybe even 3 years ago. That's not me now. And I will admit, once I got my Slovak citizenship, that did change a lot of things. I'm going to admit that. Which is why I don't really have the enthusiasm. I don't mind doing the special elections and the midterms and the primary live streams, but to just constantly every day do a video about a poll or something. Because I'm sorry, I mean, I don't have anything against the Let's Talk Elections guy, but he's just throwing out there hopium and copium. And I think his analytics are very elementary, to say the least. Seems like a nice guy. I mean, I have no problem, but it's just like, it's like Harry Enton, right? Here's a number and it's good or bad. There's no actual analytics to a lot of stuff. So, I mean, if so many people are mentioning Slovakia, why Robert Fico is better compared to Trump? Hell yes. Almost anyone is better than Trump. Yes, I mean, are you kidding? Fico isn't sitting there going, Jesus Christ, I want to go ahead and attack Vienna tomorrow. Okay, hell yes, Fico is significantly better. Do I like him? No. Is he better? God, yes. Okay, first of all, the guy can speak English and speak English well. That gives him one up on Donald Trump, right? He's not a dumb guy. Yeah, Big Chances come and said it. It's mostly about clickbait these days. I can't do that. Um, and that's one of the things I like about doing my history channel. I don't really need to do clickbait. Like my thumbnail for my video is Reagan versus Ford, 1976 Republican primary, right? It's no flashy words or anything like that. It's just, this is what it is. Now I will use AI for those videos that come up with the title and the description, mostly so that because I might not be able to think of something off the top of my head and I ask it to optimize for SEO. But like, I don't have to do that. I maybe watched that Red Eagle guy about once during the election. I don't know. I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone truly analytically looking at numbers correctly. I just really don't see it. I'm trying to think. Now there could be somebody that's looking at these numbers in a certain way. Like, to give you an example, I haven't done it much lately, but to give you an example, I've never seen any of these people do a simple linear regression with an adjusted R square and explain what that is. Right? Like they only, okay. I haven't seen people look at actual analysis of districts, actual analysis of precinct results, except for if they look at a map already done by New York Times and say, see, these arrows point this way. That should, I mean, a fucking blind guy can almost do that as long as somebody tells him the arrows are going that way. It's not a big deal. Okay. But like I have never seen, and anyone talking about voting about analytics, I have not seen anyone do a simple linear regression of some sort of statistic to do that. Now, if you watched me during the last election, you might have noticed that when I had my models, I use linear regression to determine the geographical composition of the model. So basically, the higher the R square, the more likely the model is going to represent the actual disbursement of the population of that model. I don't see anything like that in these other channels. Now it doesn't mean that there aren't those out there. I just haven't seen them, right? I just have not seen them. And maybe people could recommend those. I just haven't seen them. To me, it just seems like it's, hey, here's a new poll. Look at this. The number's gone up. This is good for Democrats. Have a nice day. It's like, and I've done that recently. And that's why I say I can't do polling right now. I don't like doing stuff simple. I feel like the last few videos about polling, it's just doing something simple. Now, when it comes to other things like, okay, I don't know how many of you watched my last video about the Alabama election, the last live stream I had. Now, I'm going to admit, when it comes to that district, I knew it well because I used to live in that district. I used to live on Rice Mine Road across from the Black Warrior River in Tuscaloosa. So I knew that district. I knew it well. I don't live in all these districts that we talk about, but looking at the district that's coming up, the Texas 9th. Okay, so that is in essentially the northwest section of Tarrant County. It includes a lot of the northern part of Fort Worth. It includes the airport outside of Fort Worth, or just slightly outside Fort Worth. Then all those more Republican suburbs in that northwest area. And see, this is why I see is the difference between my channel and other channels. I don't have a map of that district right now. I've been looking at it, analyzing it, and all that. I can tell you what that district's like because I've been looking at it, right? I can tell you what that district's like the one that we had in Georgia, House District 121. That was parts of Athens, Georgia, which included a small part of the University of Georgia campus, but mostly went down south and east into rural parts of Clark County and other parts as well. Like, I can see the map. I know the map. I know the layout. I know how Democratic Republican precincts are and stuff like that. And that's how in depth I get. And I just feel like there's not an appreciate. I mean, I'm not saying that you all don't appreciate. I think there's an appreciation by a lot of people, but is there an appreciation by enough people to make this effort a continuous effort? Okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm trying to make an income. I'm not going to lie. Okay. There are some things that people like to do for hobbies. Me, what do I like to do for a hobby? Go on vacation and visit historical sites. Okay. Not talking about linear regressions and compositions of state house districts. That's funny. No, but see, and that's another thing too. Okay, you know what? Here's another point. Let's, you know what? Fuck it. You mentioned another point. I'm going to try to find the video. Because during the election, I did a video about Lichtman. And of course, everyone told me I was wrong. And it's like, just like this. Here we go. So I'm just going to throw it in here. All right. So I did this whole video. Alan Lichtman's model isn't just bad. Its results are dishonest. And like, you go into these comments here. Okay. So you go in these comments, 264 comments. Everyone is telling, like, a ton of people. Okay, I guess some people have come back afterwards saying this aged well, this aged beautifully, and something like this. But like here, no, I object, sir. You're just jealous. No, I was right about this. You just see all of these, all of like a bunch of, oh, stop being a scatty cat. Nope, I was right. Meanwhile, he's been right every time since 2000. And like on and on and on and on and on. Okay. And let me see. The most of my videos have like between 95, 96 to 99% thumbs up. This video only had 73.5% thumbs up. Just all these response. Okay. Maybe you're just bringing this up in hopes that he contacts you to debate, thus increasing your views and subscribers. Okay. Whatever works. His results are tested back, like on and on and on. Okay. Just on. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just kind of like, no, he's not. And see, this is why a lot of times I'm just like, fuck it. Because I can do a whole entire video talking about how Alan Lichtman's wrong. Okay. And this video only has 6,141 views. It was one of my least watched videos during the election. And yet, here we are. The video was right. I did the video about we have problems in Pennsylvania. It was right. I did my article about Jen O'Malley Dillon saying how it worries me. And I read part of it to you. It was right. This is why I sit there and say half the time, fuck it. Do I want to do this anymore? I'm telling you, that's it. So, I mean, I'm not talking, I mean, I don't mind the comments. I mean, what they say. The main point for showing the comments is to show that not not necessarily if I like them or don't like them. It's to show how blind or how stubborn people are to views that challenge their view. And one thing that I've learned on YouTube with, we already know it's bad with the Republicans, but I'm finding it to be as bad on the left. I'm not going to lie. I'm finding it to be just as bad on the left as I am on the right. That if you dare question Alan Lichtman or Kyle Kulinski or this, that, or the other, if you dare, how dare you question them, right? Then you fucking throw up a video about we're in trouble in Pennsylvania. Everyone tells you wrong. Then you say, I told you so, right? It's a stubbornness aspect that I cannot stand. It's not the comment section. I don't know. And it's like, at the end of the day, my goal is to give people something that is worth something, that maybe at the end of the day, and they can disagree with me, and fine, go ahead and disagree with me. That's okay. I'm up for that. And like the other day, I actually put something wrong in my video about Ford. I forgot, like, there was one thing that I put incorrectly. And I was like, oh yeah, you caught that. Now there is one thing I did. If you've watched my video about Ford, I'll just go ahead and say it in this live stream. There is one thing that I purposely put incorrectly in there. At the end of the video, I said, if Ford would have won in 76, would he have run again in 80 and won? Okay. And that's incorrect. He couldn't have run because he served out most of Nixon's term from the 72 election. I did that to see how many people made it to the end of the video, because that's where I mentioned it. So I've learned now to maybe throw a little bit of disinformation, or not disinformation, I say something a little bit incorrect at the end of the video to see how many people make it to the end of the video, and then say, that's not correct. That's not right. So it's tricky. I'm going to say that, but yeah. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm in the boat that I'm in. I'm in the boat that I'm in because not saying you guys, I mean, a lot of you are, I mean, and this is why when the election comes, I'm still going to do stuff. And I already know when the election comes, and if there's going to be some states I say are going to be close, people are going to tell me I'm stupid, I'm wrong, I'm full of shit and all that. I know that's going to happen. It is what it is. I know that, but I'm going to say it regardless. Okay, so Daniel sent another super chat. Thank you. I like Lichtman, think his presidential rankings are great, but here's the thing. Since America has a two-party system, anyone can make an educated guess of who won. That was one of the points I made in that video, right? You have two candidates, and pretty much with the exception of a handful of elections, you already know who's going to win. Okay. And this is a big flaw. Okay. If we want to talk about political science, now he's not a political scientist. He's a historian, right? But if we want to talk about political science, his model is majorly flawed. And I might have mentioned this in the video. Okay. So what you usually do, and I don't know how many of you work in any type of science. Okay, this isn't just political science. This is any type of science. You usually create a hypothesis. You test that hypothesis, see if that hypothesis holds or not, and then you come up with your conclusions. Okay, so I'll tell you about some research I did that the hypothesis that I made proved to be wrong. So I did some research, and my hypothesis was that people who are undecided voters toward the end of the campaign will simply vote for who they think is going to win their state in the presidential election, right? So if somebody's an undecided voter in the state of Illinois, but they're pretty sure that Illinois is going to go to the Democrats, they vote Democratic, right? And we can get this information from the American National Election Studies research from the University of Michigan, the ANES studies, okay? And I tested that and it was wrong. It didn't hold up. So I was like, okay, now I know that that doesn't hold up. What Lichtman did was the opposite. He didn't come up with a hypothesis and then see if everything turned out. What he did is looked at all the results and tried to find commonalities amongst all the results and created his keys from that. He did it the opposite way of how you should be doing any type of science. Okay, so his keys could be considered a hypothesis, and then it goes by that. But and this is just kind of a really, really basic understanding. But if you want to say, okay, all the presidents have been men, so therefore my first key is going to be, if the candidate's a male or female, chances are if he's a male, he's going to win. And that shows that what he's just doing is simply observing. He's simply just observing what is, what's happening, and then making his model based on that. And if you look at his original model, then you look at his later model, he adds more shit to it, to kind of justify some things. The keys have not always been the same since when he first made them. Okay, so I think he first made them in the early 1980s. There have been a few that have been dropped and a few others that have been added because things change, right? So, so that's the thing with Lichtman that why I say I have issues with him. Okay. So as of 2004 and 2008 were hard to predict who would win. I mean, but again, as Danielson said earlier, if you have a two-party system, you have a 50-50 chance, right? And then let's put it this way. Since he started doing the keys, okay, he started doing the keys he might have done 80. I'm not sure. 80 was an easy one to predict. 84 was easy. 88 was easy. 92 was easy. 96 was easy. 2000 was hard. As a matter of fact, remember he said, and this is another thing, he picked Al Gore to win. And of course, Al Gore didn't win. And his excuse has always been, well, they cheated. I mean, which they did. I'm in the boat of they cheated, but he was wrong. 2004 was hard. 2008 was easy as pie. 2012 was difficult. So we got 2. And then 2016 was difficult. 2020 was somewhat difficult. And then 2024. So we've had 5 that we could maybe say are difficult. Okay. So 2000, 2004, 16, 20, 24. And in all of those elections, he actually got 2000 wrong. So boom, we can take that one off. 2004, it was more than likely that Bush was going to win, especially in that last week of the campaign. Okay. 16 was a shock, I would have to say. And he got that one right, according to that. 2020 he got, and then 2024 he got wrong. So you got to realize, so if we want to talk about out of the 5 elections that were close, he got 2 of them wrong. So he was 3 out of 5. Okay. And if I told you had 60% on an exam, what would that be considered? That would be considered a failing grade. or it'd be the lowest of D's, right? 59 would be a failing grade. So so what we're saying is, out of all the competitive races, he got 60% correct. Okay, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's a big thing. If he isn't leaving out the validation set, he's overfit them out. I mean, but it's like, it isn't even, I mean, it isn't even like, can you even call it a model? Okay. I mean, I guess you can, but yeah. How different is 59 from 50? I mean, yeah. I mean, really, yeah. How different is it? No, not really. But yeah, I mean, I think like because I think models need to be based off of some again, some hypothesis or some belief. So let me, and I've mentioned my model before, so let me mention it. When it comes to early votes, my model is based on, okay, let's look at the partisan model. It's a little bit harder to answer. I mean, the non-partisan model is harder, but the partisan one's easy to answer. So when I mean partisan model, I mean in states where voters register by political party. Okay. The whole idea is, at a basic level, if all registered Democrats vote Democratic, all registered Republicans vote Republican, what does that group in between do? Now, my hypothesis that up to this point has been that the independent voters or non-party affiliated voters simply mirror the voters. So if let's say you have 100 people who were registered Democrats and Republicans together, 60 of them were Republicans, 40 of them were Democrats, then the independents would eventually split up 50-40. But it goes more into that because there are some linear regressions that I run as far as county level results. I don't get into the precinct level results because sometimes that's just hard to get in all cases. And it's hard to get, but it's also hard to model because it's hard for me to web scrape all the precinct results of a state, right? Like who's turned out. Sometimes that data isn't available. But, also do just a simple linear regression. Say, okay, how likely is it for a person of this party to vote for their candidate? So take a state like Florida, for example. Pretty much party registration is an extremely good indicator of vote intention. But if you go to Kentucky, I don't know if this is the same way in Kentucky, but for many years there are more registered Democrats than Republicans, but the Republicans, with the exception of the Beshear family, right, dominated statewide elections. So therefore, it was harder to use that model. So you first have to validate that vote intention, or not vote intention, actual votes cast. And there's a correlation or relationship between votes cast and okay. So there's a relationship between votes cast and party registration. Okay. Got to establish that first. Then that's going to inform your bigger model as to when the turnout is. I'm getting a little bit dry here. So yeah. I mean, my belief with this model is just purely, as I said, vote. Again, it depends on what the state is, right? that voter registration equals voter intent. You're a registered Democrat, you vote Democratic. If you're a registered Republican, you vote Republican. So, and that's it. And then you have the people who don't vote. Now there have been a few models that I have run during this time. So there have been models where, and in the last election, I just purely made it that they mirror the people who have already voted because I wanted to make it more parsimonious. But there have been models in the past that I said, if we look at past results and we see Democrats and Republicans, and then what the middle was and trying to break that up and using it now, that would be different. So what I mean in that case is, let's say you have 1,000 voters and you had a certain amount vote Democrat, certain amount vote Republican, and the rest that were left, how did that vote split up? Assuming that the Democrats and Republicans voted that way. That was a different model that I did. So that wasn't just the mirror one. That was using election results in the past, but I'm trying to make it more parsimonious and easier. And this is why I'm just using the mirror modeling, right now. Because another fault with looking at previous election results to determine what a county will do in the next election is it is another election. It is a new election. Okay. So taking previous results is a little bit harder. I have added trends in there as well. I think I did in my last model. I'm not sure. So I wonder why Vermont has a Republican governor when it's so blue. I love Vermont. I go to Vermont a lot. It's an interesting state. The Governor Scott, I think his name is, I don't know if that's his first or his last name. I think he's retiring. He might be. Did it do better with or without the trends? See, okay, so let me make another point, which is very important, right? Because this is done by early vote and vote by mail. I can only really use that model to determine what the results will be for early vote and vote by mail, right? This is why I always make the caveat on election day. I can't tell you who I feel that the winner could be unless I have election day results. This is why Florida has been really good for me, because Florida does show election day turnout in their counties. So I'm able to, once the polls close, give an idea of saying, hey, my model is saying this. So this was one of the problems when it came to Tom Bonnier and those other people talking about election day votes and all that. I always said, we don't know what's going to happen on election day. All we can really say is unless you know who's voting on election day and you have up-to-date statistics, you're not going to be able to know. Everything that you're saying for election day voting is purely a guess. So that is one thing to remember when I do have my models. Unless it's Florida, unless I can find some other state, unless it's Florida, I can't account for election day. And that is huge, right? That is huge. So that's why I always say there's that caveat there. And what I try to do is I say, compare what early vote and vote by mail looks like compared to previous elections, see what the previous election is, and see if, what we could expect. But that is a big caveat that needs to be mentioned. Mm-hmm. No, I would say it's a nowcast because it's based on the now. Okay, the model starts when no, it's not forward. The model starts when early voting starts, like the first day of early voting. And with each one of my models, like each and every day, I have it with the caveat that if the election ended today with the voters who have cast their votes today, this would be what the election results would be of as of today. Right. And then every day the results would be different, but you could see if the trends are going one way or the other. So, right. So each and every day, the election result would be for that day, or the amount for that day. So it is accumulating over time. So yeah. So that's why it's a nowcast, because because it really isn't, because again, like I said, with an election, I can't account for election day. I can't account for a lot of stuff. All right. Well, no, only election day, except for Florida. Okay. It is of the data that is in now. Oh, here's another one. So, well, what's your domain? I'm kind of interested. So you say different domains think about things, right? Yeah, tell me, because you're right. That's absolutely correct. Dave, I'm curious. Do you think the national environment really matters as to how each state votes, and could deviation signal? I don't think we're seeing any realignment. I mean, I don't know. I mean, let's be, and I'm going to be honest. Let's be perfectly clear. What we see in Florida, in that first congressional district, that third state house district, in those special elections, especially the congressional district, the one where Jimmy Patronis won, that is huge. We have never, ever, okay, I'm not going to say never, ever. Okay. We have never seen in this century, the 21st century, anywhere where the Republican candidate got less votes than the amount of Republicans who voted in the election. We usually see that, especially in the Panhandle, on the Democratic side. So the numbers look good. There are extremely impressive things happening right now. Extremely impressive things. Like this video is mostly about the polling numbers, and if the polling numbers are bullshit or not, or whatever. But you're right. But I need to end this stream in a few. I mean, yeah. So I mean, so Tropical Ding Dong. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And this is what, and this is important, because you need to know your domain. And one of the problems that we had, I don't know if it still happens, one of the problems that we have in political science, it was 10 years ago, it was really a problem. You had a lot of people who did their undergraduate's degrees in mathematics, and even their master's degree in mathematics. But they couldn't get into a PhD program in mathematics, statistics, or whatever. It was usually, it was some kind of quantitative field, like mathematics, statistics, whatever. So you saw a lot of them go into political science, because it was around this time. I mean, if we really want to be honest, it was since the American voter back in 1959, 1960, that started the quantitative analysis of the modern quantitative analysis that we know of political science today. Okay. So a lot of these people in the math department, in their math departments, started flooding the political science field. And what would happen is they would come up with all these models, like Monte Carlos, this, that, like everything, right? And they would show these elaborate models of trying to figure something out. But what they thought was elaborate or whatever, was like common sense to the political science community. So they really figured out nothing. So And I can even tell you there were two professors from Stanford. They were assistant professors. They were still getting their feet wet in the academic world. They're getting their feet wet in the political science world. But they're from Stanford. We could tell they were just statisticians. That's what they were. And what happened is they presented, and this was at the Midwest Political Science Association meeting, which is always at Palmer House in Chicago. And they showed us all of the simulation and all the data they had and all this. And their conclusion was that they figured out that black voters mostly vote Democratic. Like that, their whole entire thing. And everyone was just looking around and literally were like, yeah, we know that. You did all of this modeling and all of everything to just give us something that is essentially common sense in the behaviorist political world, right? And so this is why I think, right, you need to know your domain. And this goes back to knowing political science, being involved with it, so you can come up with a hypothesis and all these, come up with a model that actually explains something that people want answers to. Okay. But I remember, and they were from Stanford. And so you're starting to get a lot of, Nate Silver sucks. I mean, I'm sorry. I think he got one election right. But see, I don't believe he's just into aggregating polling data. I don't think aggregating polling data is necessarily the best. Again, and okay, let's compare models. I had my model for Florida in 2018 for the Florida governor's race. I said that DeSantis was going to win by a very, very, very slight margin. That's exactly what happened. I might still have my DeSantis map up. Nope, not sign up. I'm going to go into my Tableau. I still might have my DeSantis. Come on. I still might have my DeSantis map up. And I can show you. Hidden. Okay. I'm pretty sure I had operations 2020 nowcast model. Chris DeSantis. Come on, Dave. I know you had to have saved this. Oh, maybe I got it. Maybe I got it public. No, that's the 2022 predictive model. I know I got to have this somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, this was my, get over here. This was my nowcast model for Florida. Go away. This was, now there are a few, no, this was it. Conflated projection. I ran a little bit of a different model back then, a little bit, but I don't remember what the difference was. But this was my Florida model, right? My Florida model, I had Gillum and Nelson. So another thing, this isn't also based on like candidates. It was, if you take the average Democrat and have them run against the average Republican, what would the average Democrat and Republican get? And this was my result. DeSantis 49% with, or Rick Scott 49% to Gillum's 47.8%. So let's go ahead. and just see. I'm just going to go here to the results. So you can see 49.5 to 49.2. Okay. So it's actually closer. But if you go down to, I think they do this in here. I think there's something like shows Nate Silver's prediction. And if any of you want to really follow a Republican turned Democrat, Nancy Argenziano from Florida, try to find her on Blue Sky. She's absolutely awesome. So let's see. Yeah, see, 538, Nate Silver, likely flip. I don't even know if they have it up there anymore because I think that the New York Times scrubbed all of their prediction models. Maybe they still have this. Oh, it's because it's on the Wayback Machine. Okay. So yeah, so Nate Silver had, because remember, this is Nate Silver had Andrew Gillum winning by 3.1%. So this is why I'm saying my model was correct. My model was correct. My model was the only model nationwide that actually gave it. See, tilt Democratic. So Rothenberg Political Report, tilt Democratic. Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball, lean Democratic. All the others toss up. I mean, I said my numbers were 49 to 47.8. So this is what I'm saying is that this is, and then the reason I was able to make this prediction was because I had election day results. If I didn't have election day results, I couldn't have done this, but I had election day results, so I could. SoCal strategies, funny. But yeah, so this is why I'm frustrated. This was another situation. I'm telling you, this was another situation where all the Democrats in Florida were like, Dave, you don't know what you're talking about. Andrew Gillum. I mean, I had people tell me that Andrew Gillum was going to win by 10%. Andrew Gillum's going to win by these big amounts. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. I was like, Andrew Gillum and Democrats are going to barely lose. At least that was my thought. I mean, anything can happen. You can have a change in votes. But okay, and this model, this one you're showing was based on early voting and voter registration. Yeah. Early vote. No. So this is because, like I said, Florida's different. I can get election day results. So this is based on all votes cast. Okay. The only issue I have with this model is I overestimated the others. I said 3.2% and they weren't, it wasn't there. So yeah, this is based on that. All right. Well, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to get ready for tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a YouTube short for my history channel, and please go over to my history channel, Election History. I'm going to start and hopefully release it this week. I'm going to do the election history, not a big video, like a 15-minute video of the kind of like electoral history or political history, like partisan politics, election, stuff like that, of each of the states. Now, I've already done Utah, and I did a 45-minute video on Utah, but I'm going to be doing it on all of the states. So I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. I'm going to start with Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, so on and so forth. So Alabama should be coming out next week. My next campaign video is going to be about the 1994 Ann Richards versus George W. Bush gubernatorial race in Texas. Democrats have not had a governor in Texas since, and that's it. So I need to start working on that. I had planned on being on here for a half hour, and like always, it ends up being 2 hours and something after I rant for a while. But thank you all very much for joining me. Thank you all for the super chats. Greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I might not be doing any videos if there's like just no reason to do a video. They just have not been performing well. It's more beneficial for me to work on my history channel than it is this one. But I am going to be doing live election results. So the Texas Senate race, I will be covering that. That's next Tuesday, right? So I will be covering that. That one will be a focus. So yeah. All right. Thank you all very much. I will see you later. Have a wonderful day.